So, I just watched a low budget indie film called Black Adam, starring this like new up and coming actor named like Dwayne Johnson or something. Never heard of him. No, but for real though, I just saw Black Adam in the theater, and I have to say, it's pretty litty. Like, it's a really damn fun movie. And I was really pleasantly surprised by it. I didn't go into it expecting a good movie, and I didn't get one, but that's okay. Because I wasn't expecting to be completely blown away by this masterpiece of cinema, I wasn't disappointed when, you know, the usual suspects, the usual bad movie tropes started popping up. I wasn't fazed by any of that. And instead, I was just really pleasantly surprised by how much I enjoyed how fun that movie was. That's the best way I can describe that movie. It's just a lot of fun. I'll just get all the bad things out of the way because, to be honest, like I just said, it's the usual suspects, right? It's the usual bad superhero movie tropes. You know, there was the corny dialogue, there was a lot of exposition, and it was telling, not showing. The exposition was always thrown at you instead of being shown to you. You had your side characters that weren't completely necessary. They didn't really need to be there, but they were there anyway. Lots of flashbacks as well to go along with the exposition. And it was that usual voiceover exposition over the flashback. Oh, there was a child. There was a child. And I don't think I need to explain what happens when there is a child in what could be a bad superhero movie. I can absolutely understand why people would hate the kid in this movie. I didn't completely hate him. In fact, I actually kind of enjoyed him. The kid was one of the things that I kind of enjoyed.
Pause. What do you mean by that?
The kid's dialogue was definitely the corniest, but it was kind of charming. And I think a lot of it was because Black Adam was so kind of like unfeeling and unfazed by anything that when this really hyper excited kid bounces off that hyper energy off of Black Adam, it kind of just hits a brick wall. And so it kind of came off to me as charming more than cringe. And the reason why I enjoyed, or not necessarily enjoyed the kid being in there, but like it wasn't such a huge problem for me in the film, was because a lot of these usual bad superhero movie tropes that I'm talking about, this film did them in moderation, if that makes sense. I was never overwhelmed by any of these bad tropes. The dialogue was pretty corny, but like I said, it was never full on cringe. It was just borderline cringe. And the side characters didn't overstay their welcome. They were never too in your face. They knew what purpose they served in the story and, you know, to interact with the other characters. And I'm mainly talking about Cyclone and Atom Smasher. There were maybe like one or two scenes where it was meant to endear them to the audience. I thought that was fine because it was only like one or two scenes that I can really remember. I think it was actually just one. So, like I said, in moderation. And obviously, the reason why is because the main spectacle, and I do mean spectacle, is of course Black Adam. Surprise, surprise, the titular character is the main spectacle. No, but really though, I felt like this movie desperately needed to get this character right, and I think they really did. And I'm not speaking from a comic book perspective because I don't read Black Adam comics, so I can't speak to like the comic accuracy of the character or what have you. One of the things that I loved about this character was that he was tonally consistent. He was not acting out of character too many times. He spoke to all these different characters with different personalities in the same way that he would speak to you know, pretty much everyone. So it never felt like he was flip-flopping, you know, between being this kind of personality and then this other kind of personality. Like, no, he was completely unfeeling and unfazed throughout the entire movie, which is a good thing, because honestly, when these main characters from these superhero movies become too like inconsistent, like they're joking and quipping one scene and then the very next scene they're like trying to be all serious and tough, when it's like, but you were just joking that previous scene. Why aren't you joking this scene? It doesn't work, and it makes for a main character that the audience doesn't want to watch. And because Black Adam was pretty consistent, it made his character arc feel a lot more natural. Like it wasn't forced. The story beats hit when they needed to, and they did it pretty effectively. And it's not the most complex structure. It's a pretty simple story structure, right? Like a pretty bog standard, like hero's journey, Blake Snyder, 12-beat structure, right? Like it was simple but effective, and that's perfectly fine, especially for a superhero blockbuster like this. You don't need to get all complex and philosophical with it. Just get your fundamentals right. This film didn't need to reinvent the wheel when it comes to superhero movies, and it wasn't looking to do that at all. And I thought that worked tremendously in its favor. One of the best things, if not the best aspect of this movie, is definitely the action scenes. When I say that this movie is a lot of fun, what I'm talking about are the action scenes. In general, they were just done really well, and they conveyed just how powerful this dude is. Like, they showed his superhuman abilities really well. In fact, in general, as of late, DC movies have done a really good job with that. Like Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Zack Snyder's Justice League, like they really showed the extent and sort of the effects of these superpowers. You can really feel the impact of the punches, especially when your main character is as built as The Rock is. You really have to kind of do that part of the action justice, like the impact of the hits. And I think they did that really well, and it made the action scenes really fun and satisfying to watch. Although I will say, that's probably the one thing that they didn't do in moderation, was the action scenes. In fact, I think they might have done one too many, to the point where the story wasn't being dictated by the beats, story beats. The action sequences kind of dictated the flow of the film. I'm not sure if that's really a bad thing, especially for this kind of superhero action flick. I think the pacing was okay, right? There was a lot of action scenes, but there were just enough moments. There were just those moments where everything was just chill, right? There were enough of those moments to where the action wasn't like pounding your head until you were numb. Like it was actually, they set up the action scenes pretty well too. There was just a lot of it. Last thing I want to talk about is how much the soundtrack absolutely slaps. Although it might be a little bit like the action scenes, where it might have slapped a bit too hard at some moments, at some scenes, where it was a bit too much of this like heavy brass droning, like Inception style blah. Like, okay, we get it, maybe calm down a bit. But there were really only a few moments like that where that felt like I was kind of being a bit overwhelmed by the music. But in general, the soundtrack was just, it was so, a pun fully intended, it was so electrifying. It just slapped, man, and it slapped in all the right places. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Again, I wasn't expecting a deep philosophical conversation about anti-heroism. I wasn't expecting this movie to reinvent the wheel. Wasn't expecting a great movie in any regard. It got its fundamentals right. It hit all the beats that it needed to, and it got all the aspects right that it needed to. So if you're gonna see this movie, I would suggest keeping your expectations low and not expecting too much from the film. And if you do, I think you're gonna be very pleasantly surprised by how much you're gonna enjoy it. Yeah, that's it. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.